Yes, doing it all. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are so excited to have you all for this conversation about the most interesting topic in the world, CRMs. If you want to in the chat, let us know where you're joining us from. And then we'd love to know what CRM are you currently on, or if you're in transition, you can also say that you're converting. So we'd love to hear from you in the chat about what's going on in your CRM life. And how many of you also have like kids out of school today? Because a lot of my team is unexpectedly home with kids. So, but
That's
yeah.
snow, man. It's a great thing.
And in the Southeast, they can't cope with the snow very well. So
Correct.
everything shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So let us know where you're joining us from and either what CRM you're on, or if you're in conversion, we'd love to hear how you're doing there. College of Holy Cross, we're going from advanced to AffiniQuest.
Hey, Christy, good to see you.
And what'll be fun about that is she'll say advance 100 times, but she'll mean AffiniQuest because they both start with an A.
Yep.
Going from Banner to Slate over in Ohio at Miami University. May at Vassar is going from Thank You to Slate. There, I haven't heard of Thank You.
It's not being sold in the US anymore.
Oh no, oh dear. Okay, Amy is at Whitman and she's going from Millennium, now there's a word I haven't heard in a while, to Slate. Okay. So we've got 3 Slaters and an AffiniQuester. And Slate came over to us from the enrollment side. Where, yeah, Russell is checking in from the University of Laverne. They're using Banner. Now, Russell, I grew up on Banner. So Banner makes complete sense. I live in those 7-letter characters of Adadezg and AP Aiden and all that. And I remember when Jenny and I were working at UNC Charlotte, they would only give me the web view. And I'm like, could you give me the regular view? Because I actually know what that means. And so, yeah, Adadezg, 80s, yes.
APA
yes,
Child, APA Spriden.
Yes, my favorite one was, I called it refrigerator management, RFR MGMT, because that was where the fun codes for the scholarships connected over. Okay, Macy's at WashU, and they're just now using AffiniQuest, right? Oh, Kathleen has no clue what they're converting to, but they're in Razor's Edge, right? So I love this.
Yeah, and I mean, if you are a database view for Razor's Edge, you're kind of converting into NXT here over the next year as they're going to phase out database view. So you're kind of in it anyway.
Oh, and most of the time without telling us, right?
Right.
Good times, good times. Well, we are here to chat, at DRG. One of the things that we love to do is talk about topics that are top of mind for lots of folks. And one of the things that always spurs a wonderful conversation at our conferences or in our webinars is we're in conversion, or we need to convert, or we converted and it didn't work. Or so I brought what I think are our team's 2 best minds, our biggest data nerds, and that's a compliment in our world to be a data nerd. Jenny Jones, and Jenny is in her full-time role with EAB, and then Liz Many, who works now for Awarded, used to work for ThankView and Evertrue and Otter. And so I've got our data folks in here. I have enough background to be dangerous, but Jenny has been helping clients for years get ready for a CRM conversion, talk about what the needs are. And we are realizing, and I'm sure many of you in the chat probably can empathize with this, that we are doing a lot of CRM or database conversions. Whatever word you use is fine with us. There's no bad word, but and we're leaving out the donor relations folks. I mean, I have clients who went through a CRM conversion that can't issue a thank you letter or can't get their endowment information pulled through. It's like or don't have anywhere to store their funds or even their signs, or just, it seems that sometimes, the frontline fundraisers are taken into account, so they can enter a contact report from anywhere in the universe, right, through an app, but we can't necessarily do the blocking and tackling of the work that we need to do. So I'd love to talk to you all about that, and also get some perspective. I had a friend, Mike, who used to work at Williams College, and he said that when he started in his career, and he was the head of advancement services, he had one piece of software that he used, and that was the database. And by the time Mike retired, 20 something years later, I won't age him, he had 19 pieces of software, but he was still paid the same amount, had basically the same staff. And so, but when they sell our organizations, the CRMs and the sales forces, they say it's going to be the silver bullet for all your problems. You just convert to us. We're going to raise so much more money and it'll solve all of your problems. And until we convert, we're not going to do anything. Yes, Susan, Mike, I loved him. He was fantastic. Sounds like we know the same person, but and so we have a problem where, how are we optimizing our technology? How are we being consulted in it? And how, so Elizabeth says that, yeah, Susan, yep, says that at NAIT in Alberta, they're in a long changeover. I like that. I haven't yet seen a quick changeover, by the way. If anybody has a changeover that's happened in less than a year, it probably didn't work, but I've never seen a short one. And DR wasn't consulted around a lot of the decisions that impact their work. So Jenny, why don't you give us a little overview of what's happening in our industry when it comes to the core CRM or database tech that we're using, and kind of how donor relations fits into that?
Well, what's happening is that we realize we need more than the database. I mean, Banner is a database at its heart, right? And it's great at what it does, but it is not all encompassing. And so as Lynn mentioned, what we have done is add what I call top hats on top of our databases, which are email services, giving day services, Otter, all these other technologies. So what the companies are doing is saying, let's build a CRM that can do the majority of this functionality. Some will tell you they can do it all. I would caution you to believe that, because I have not found one where that is true. Liz is agreeing with me, right? But the idea is that you should be spending your money and your time on one software platform, which is a modernized CRM. Now, the thing that happens and the problem is that donor relations, annual giving, and alumni engagement are always the last to the table, if you are even included. And I might add gift and data processing, right? Because we even though we are essential functions for advancement, we all know that we're not the sexy, like we're not the fundraisers. So you have to remember that these CRMs are built for fundraisers, specifically major gift fundraisers. That's why they're not asking us. So I would say you have to bring yourself to the table. Like if you cannot do an endowment agreement, if you cannot have that gift agreement and know what the stewardship is that needs to happen from that gift agreement, like you have to bring those solid examples. And I will tell you, with my EAB knowledge, we just did a survey of VPs and SVPs and saw that 41% of those 200 plus who responded had recently converted to a new CRM. So this is not something that is dying. This is something we are going to see continuing and probably rapidly, especially for those of you on some of the older solutions like a Banner Advancement. Now, I'm not saying Banner Student, because that's still a database and working well, but Banner Advancement, Millennium, some of the, thank you if you're on that. As far as I know, that's not sold in the US anymore. So some of these systems are just, they're old and you can't do what you need to do with them. So for cost saving reasons, which is how the vendors are going to pitch it, you need to be in a unified system.
There are pros and cons to those unified systems too, right? Like, but I think the important pieces for all of us here on this call today is when we bring our seat to the table, because here at DR, we are all about bringing our seat to the table. We bring that folding chair, that comfy little office chair, and just scoot on in. But you know, really kind of saying all of these fancy sizzle items are great, but at its core, are we going to be able to get the data we need to make the sizzle really work? And so that's where we come in with our awesome strategic hats that we wear all the time, and really get our players to kind of like engage in those conversations. And
Yeah, that's a great point, Liz. And let me just back up and add on to that, because the very first step you need to think about, and I said this when I worked at Ellucian, you guys, clean your data. Clean your data, know your data. Do not bring all that data into a new CRM. Liz, comment on that.
listen, we could go for hours just about cleaning data, and many of you on this call have heard me do that. But yeah, like we always talk about bad data in is bad data out, and it does not matter what wrapping you put your data in. If it's bad, it's bad. And so if you know that you are constantly having to fix A, B, and C when you're pulling reports out in your current system, if you're not fixing that now, when you transition over, it's still going to be a problem, and it may just be harder to fix depending on how the data is being fed to you at that spot. So yeah, like the core of all of this is no matter what fancy things we have, data is the foundation to our house. And we got to make sure that there aren't cracks in the foundation, that there aren't missing pieces.
And they'll show you a lot of reports and a lot of things that you can do or tools your gift officers can use. But to Liz's point, first make sure you've got the data to actually run those reports. So for instance, you're going to hear a lot of talk about affinity groups, bringing in information from your student system. What clubs were they involved with? What groups were they involved with? Did they volunteer? Were they on a student ambassador, for instance, right? Were they SGA? If you are not currently receiving that information from your student affairs and admissions colleagues, you are not going to receive that information with the new CRM. So think about all those steps, because the last thing you want to do is implement a CRM and then go have those discussions. For those of you who haven't done it yet, it's possible, but it's better if you prepare for it on the front end and say, hey, we're getting this great new technology. I really would love to have this data in there so that once our students matriculate, or if they're seniors, it depends on whether you're running a senior gift campaign, we can go back and connect with them in a way that means something to them. We talk about donor behavior, and I'll give you an example. I had a history degree. My alma mater kept sending me from the history department. I'm like, I do nothing with history. Do I love history? Yes, I do. Not a part of my job, had been a part of my job for 20 years. However, I was in the marching band for 8 years. I was in the alumni band for 16 years. How about you send me something for the School of Music? Right? But, and they had all of that data. It was just in their student system. It had not been brought over to advancement. So that's when we're talking about data, it's not only the data in your system, it's brainstorm. And I always say, don't just think outside the box, throw the box away. What do you want to be able to report on? What data do you want to be able to show or to use to figure out what donors are passionate about, and then to show them the impact for that? You got to have that data in your database. So you have to figure out all the API talk. How do you get the data in? Even if it's a flat file, you just need that data.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And also, one of the things that happens during conversion is a lot of people say the data is dirty because of the conversion, or we can't get reports because of the conversion. I find that's not exactly accurate. I don't want to call anybody a liar, but it's really that the data, we didn't have data hygiene and discipline before the conversion. And now it's in different places, it's in different spaces, and we're having trouble communicating. And we need to have ongoing data and deeper conversations about what data we focus on, because I think one of the things that gets lost in all of this is not every piece of data is of equal importance to others.
That's right.
So
that's exactly it.
In donor relations land, right? You all both have a background in donor relations. What are the data things that before we convert, or hey, the conversion's over, it's too late. What are the pieces of data that we have to do our job in donor relations? What are or maybe the categories where you say, you know what, without this, we're not going to be as successful?
Yeah, I'll give an overarching, and then Liz, I'll let you take it away. But you need to know, when did they give? Where did they give? Why did they give? Who is it? Student, faculty, staff, alumni, community member. You need to know, have they been giving for 5 years, 1 year, 20 years? Like all of that data. And I'll say one thing, because Lynn alluded to this. This is the problem when donor relations is not at the table, because you have IT folks, and I love my IT folks. You guys are great. However, to Lynn's point, you don't always know the data that we need to do our jobs, because you are looking at it as matching field to field instead of asking, what reports do you need to run in order to do your work? What data do you need to see? And Liz, take it away.
Yeah. I do this a lot in my day job because we map a lot of things from your CRM into our platform, right? And so there's mapping to make sure that data A goes into data B. And that's very important, but that's for our IT team. So that's for the technical geniuses, right? For us, we need to make sure that the data that we are wanting to map really feeds into our core goals, right? So yes, giving history. But if you think of our 4 pillars in donor relations, not only do you need gift transactions and history, the calculation of giving years, right? That's not something that will just carry over from one to the other. You've got to work through that equation with your new platform, but also your reporting history, like where you're storing your reports, whether that's contacts or actions or different places, that will come over differently into a new space. So understanding that that historical kind of documentation does need to come over and live. How you guys do recognition societies, whether you code them in your CRM or not. I hope most of you are these days, but every platform handles memberships, and loosely terms, right, very differently. And so we need to, one, not lose that data, but also know how to work with that data once it's in the platform, right? So I love that you said mapping data, because we all love Excel around here, right? And I do this a lot. I will just kind of like map out, here's where it currently is, and we need it like to map in this kind of similar fashion, because that just is my visual for me to understand what we're looking at. But when we're thinking about the things that we need to come over, look at the reports you're pulling on a weekly, monthly, daily basis, right? And review those data points. And I don't mean the demographic points, right? Like those points are going to come over, and they're going to come over exactly as they need to, right? But we're not about those, but about, hey, do you have a standard report that calculates a gift transaction report, but it will also calculate the total gift of that transaction, right? So if I'm a donor that gave to 4 different areas, I'm going to probably come across in that report 4 different times, but my total gift is the sum of all of those. And if your report's already doing that, we need to make sure like those things are coming in. So anytime we're kind of going into a transition, we always want to review our current state of affairs and going through what we're doing on a regular basis and just thinking, oh, this isn't just a data point, right? This isn't just address 1. This is a fun custom formula that we did that is looking at all of these places. Are we going to be able to replicate that in our new system? I need to make sure that I'm asking the, coding geniuses that we have, is this going to be possible, or are we going to have to reassess how we look at this over time? So that's a lot of the things. Sometimes we get so worried about the like basics part of the data, and that's what the lovingly data people do, right? Like they've got the basics. We need to make sure the functionality of our data and our interactions with it are really what we're able to bring over.
Yeah, the one caveat I would add though is if you have created special fields and you've customized your database, you need to tell IT, because they have to understand why you need these fields or these calculations. They just don't. Most of the time, they don't have a really strong grasp of donor relations and what it is that we do. So I even start by explaining my job to them. Sounds basic, But if
Yep.
they understand what you do, then they understand why. The other thing is to think about things that you would like to have, gift agreements, for instance. Are you linking out to a gift agreement, or can the actual documentation be stored in the CRM?
Ooh,
Same
that's a good
thing
one.
for gift officer comments and notes.
Mhm.
Why do you need to know that? Well, if we're thanking a donor, we need to know the conversation that has taken place.
Mhm.
And so, can I see that? Where is that stored? How easy is it? Do I have to go to another screen? So these may
Yep.
seem like basic questions, but you need to ask them for donor relations, because if you don't ask them, I can guarantee you no one else is, because they're thinking about, how does this impact me and my job? And IT is thinking about, I need to do this in 12 to 18 months. Good luck.
Mhm.
How can I do that as fast as possible while matching data and the data architecture on the back of two systems? So everybody's specialized. That's why you've got to have a seat at the table.
Mhm. CRM committees are something a lot of our teams put together, but it tends to be very small, and they don't always expand after the initial like RFP review, and that committee is something you need to keep your ears to the ground for, because when you hear it, you need to go, "Hi, can I be there?" Again, bring that chair, right? Because the earlier we can ask these questions in the process, the smoother the selection tool for our organization, but also the team, once they do start that transition work, already has a lot of that information because they've used it in the, question process and the selection process of the actual platform. So, yeah.
Yeah, you should really have, if you have not, if you are looking at a CRM now, donor relations should have a section in your RFP or RFI.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Right? And you need to make sure that those questions are ones that you would ask, because what happens is, as vendors, we would share with you a sample RFP or RFI. And those questions are just generic. It's to give the institution a place to start. So you need to go in, if there are special processes you have, for instance, if you handle endowments differently, which you probably do, than another institution, you need to put those questions into the vendors, because having been on the vendor side, just being completely transparent, I'm going to sell you and show you what it takes for you to buy.
Uh-huh.
And so if you don't ask me a certain question, I'm not going to go back and say, oh, you know what? You didn't ask about XYZ for donor relations. Now, as a consultant, do I do that all day long? I'm like, hey, talk to me about your business processes.
Uh-huh.
By the way, which you should also look at, don't pick up your business processes and replicate those in a new CRM. Think about how you are able to work differently and put that in the RFP. If I wanted to work this way, and that's
Uh-huh.
your question. And so really think about that. So that's why Liz is saying, you've got to be in on that front end, because if you don't help create that RFP, the vendors are not going to answer those questions, or they'll say something in the demos like, oh, we'll see that later, or I'll answer that later. You may never get an answer.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And you got to remember, the people that are pitching these, they're pitching to the buyer, the person that's going to put the ink to the paper, not necessarily the entire team. So,
We're pitching to the major gift officers. I'll just cut it right there.
I
Most of
mean,
our VPs are major gift officers, and that's who you pitch to. So that's who the personas are built for when we do demos.
The other
absolutely.
interesting thing that I've seen is that the sales team that does the demo is not the implementation team.
No.
And the sales team a lot for my donor relations professionals, they're a lot like the gift officer, and then we have to fulfill the gift. The implementation team has to do the stewardship and fulfill the and sometimes they promise things that aren't really real. We're having some great conversations in the chat. So one of the questions we have from our attendees is, can you talk about your experience with CRM teams that really focus on data governance and will not provide you with reports that show donor names and giving histories together, because they see only data governance best practices that conflict directly with their relationship management? I don't know how you do donor relations without the donor's name. And so let's give one of our participants, we're keeping close to the vest here, let's give her some support in how would she have that conversation with someone who says you're not entitled to know the donor's name and their giving amount.
Donor governance is different for every institution. There is no set donor governance. Now, they will say it's best practice. The best practice is really high level. It is not at the level you are talking about. So you've got to give the case for why you need to see that data and lay it out. I cannot do my job because I cannot do reporting if I cannot see this information. Therefore, I cannot show the impact of the gift. Therefore, the major gift officer cannot go back to that individual with a second ask because we haven't shown the impact of the first gift. So you really have to go in and lay it out and say, I would love to write as part of the data governance what this would look like and put that into the policy, because that they're flying blind. They honestly probably do not know why you need this. So that's what I would say. But Liz, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too.
No, that's spot on. I also like to go, oh, can you explain the data governance rule to me? Because I don't understand it. And a lot of times that also helps open that door a little bit, because if they're confident in that answer, they'll be able to explain it. And then that's where you get to go, oh, I totally see where you're coming from. However, and then insert your use case here. But I will say probably 7 times out of 10, most people don't actually know how to explain that policy to you. They just say that it is policy. So they're honestly taking the black and white of the paper and not really understanding what the policy is truly trying to lead to. So I love to ask, because it also allows the person to like explain what's going on their side of the world. We get to learn a little, which is always important. And now it becomes less of a, you're not giving me something that I need, but more of a, I want to learn, help me. So that way you can help me, but then I can help you, and we all get better at the same time.
Our friend Angie Jones uses the help me understand.
Yes, help me understand. I will add though, make sure if you have a steering committee, you let your steering committee representative know what's going on, as well as or your VP, however it goes, because those are the people that have the power so that they can back you. Because I'm going to tell you now, 9 times out of 10, whoever you talk to is going to come to your supervisor or the VP, whoever it is, and they're going to say, well, does this person really need this? And if you haven't already explained your case, like Liz was saying, and said, okay, they explained it to me, but that doesn't meet my needs to be able to do X, Y, Z, you've got to have them ready so they can back you.
Yep.
Yeah, give them a cheat sheet, give them a 1-pager. I remember when I first started consulting, there were some schools in the US whose enrollment departments and financial aid departments took FERPA, which is our law that protects student data, very literally. And we were like, I need the name of the student recipient of this scholarship. You're not allowed to have that. And I'm like, well, how am I supposed to tell the donor? And they're like, oh, you're not allowed to have that. FERPA. And they would just say FERPA. And so then I went and I read FERPA. And back then we didn't have AI where I could dump FERPA into API and say, explain this to me like a 6-year-old, right? And I read and I educated myself on FERPA. And then I went back and said, and then I also said, by the way, here's all our peer institutions who allow this data. So we're the outlier. So help me understand how this is not the course of business, right? So we've moved from fundraising databases, that the old term that some of us use still traditionally, to CRMs, right? Enterprise systems. Yet our fundraising databases in the donor relations sphere used to do things that a lot of CRMs aren't built to do and need custom build outs to do. So we were chatting earlier about Banner. I used to be able to manage the fund process from, I could see the designation, I could see the gifts given to it, I could see the donors. I couldn't see the balance or anything unless I had Banner Finance, which I had read-only access to. And I could also see who the beneficiary of it was if I had it tied together. I knew the FOP, everybody loves a FOP word. And I could see all of that, not on one screen, but I could get to it, use codes and get in there. Most of the CRMs today are not as robust when it comes to funds. And so one of our audience members who I love dearly said, tell us about, do any of the platforms we've evaluated have a robust fund management component? And I'm going to give my opinion, then I'll let Liz and Jenny give hers. I have not seen a CRM with robust fund management, period. You have to custom build it. And when I'm talking fund management, I'm talking about for stewardship, for reporting, things like that, which is why we have Fund Driver, FundMiner, and Awarded, all, and Blackbaud Awards Management, all serving, I wanted to name them all, make sure I got all four of the big ones, all serving our industry because our CRMs aren't built the way our databases used to be, to where that information. And so, Laura, to your point, it says the platforms seem to be more and more fundraising. And as Jenny said, they're sold to major gift officers. They are not sold for the back end. And so they're pretty, but they don't have all the functionality. So that's why secondary software to me is important. And I actually think software that focuses on one component is absolutely essential to our job. I like that frustrating is your favorite F word. It's not mine. And it's not Fritos in my world either. So Liz, you work at Awarded, which is one of those secondary software companies. What Awarded's not trying to be a CRM. I want to make that clear, correct? And the CRM isn't really interested in building out a component like Awarded. Why is that?
So I think it comes back to the history of our current versions of CRMs. And I'm going to use Salesforce because this is the best visual that I think you all will understand. Salesforce started as a sales tool in the corporate space, which is I have a limited set of SKUs. I come to you, we sell, we exchange, we close the deal, and we're off to the next. They have taken that base and then built the advancement relationship model around it, instead of kind of rebuilding from scratch. So at its core, all of our CRMs, not just Salesforce, that's just my best visual, they all come from that kind of core transactional, short, itemized space. And so in our world, where we've got thousands of funds and lots of relations, they're just not used to because they've never actually had to do the relational work behind it. I don't think anyone at this current juncture is really digging into it. It is possible because, like with a Salesforce, you do have to go out to an Ascend or an Affinequest to really get that like advancement module, that it is possible that those two are going to start developing it once they're getting into a really good implementation process on the current build. Both of those have come out of the gate and really have exploded in our advancement space. And so right now they're really working on scaling their implementation to make it smoother, to make it more robust for all of us, which is where our seat at the table helps push them to get better, right? But they're going to have to knock out that piece first before I think they even really consider reevaluating the relationship context in its core model. And it's not that it isn't worth their time. It is. I think it would absolutely increase their potential for revenue and retention. But it's not in its core functionality. So they really have to sit and balance the time of building that out versus enhancing the current functionality. So,
and yes, as we say at DRG, right, Liz? And we in donor relations don't have big budgets to spend building out that side of software. Whereas I can bring on Awarded or FundMinder or FundDriver for 1/10 of the cost of building that out itself in any CRM platform. Jenny, you have a 30,000-foot view of, have you seen any roadmaps from any of the big 4 or 5 that have good fund management built into their CRMs?
No, and y'all be careful because roadmaps change all the time. Roadmaps are just what we think the vendors will be building in the future. It doesn't mean that it will be built. So when you're in the sales process and they talk about the roadmap and they point to it, you can't count on that, because what Lynn's saying is true, right? If there's not money behind it, if they cannot say to someone that this will be a value add. So if a vice president will not buy this product because it does not have XYZ, this isn't it, right? What are they looking for? Remember, CRM is constituent relationship management. So they're not thinking about funds at all. They are thinking about email capabilities, tracking social handles, tracking the moves management process, right? That's why I always say, how about gift entry? Can we get that? You're not going to have any gifts if your data team cannot update the data and enter the gifts, And people laugh at me. I'm like, step back and think for a minute. And then you see the recognition dawn. I'm like, that should be the first question you ask. And if you're really interested in Salesforce and what is now, I think it used to be in MPSP, now it's Cloud for Good, ask them about gift entry. That's just a little hint there, right? So that's why AffiniQuest and UCI have come on the market so strongly, is because they have built those abilities in on top of Salesforce. Remember, it's on top of it. But to Liz's point, Salesforce is a marketing machine. It's all about marketing and relationship management. It is not meant to take the place technically of a database of record, is what I say. So that's why you see a lot of institutions still running Millennium and they have Salesforce, or they're still running Banner and they have AffiniQuest, or whatever it is. I think my guess is one that would be interested would be Slate. And why do I say that? Because Slate is more progressive. Because they have built their own platform. You'll see this with Ellucian too, although Ellucian is on Microsoft. But Slate, having a proprietary platform, can make the decision if the voices are loud enough that yes, we need to build out this functionality, and then their R&D will take the time to do it. Lynn, to your point, but it's got to be that push, and they've got to see the money coming in behind it.
Whereas a secondary software platform, that is their business, that niche, right? And they're going to constantly develop it. To give you guys something similar, CRMs aren't going to build in a custom video software because ThankView already does that. That's what they make their money on, and they're good at it, right? So to Kathy's point, they just implemented Salesforce Ascend, and she said, I see potential, but in its current form, they're struggling to see the donor relations benefit. And that's why we're having this conversation, because I think a lot of people have heard, oh, well, once we get our new CRM, or they've been told the new CRM, we have yet to see, and we've seen a lot over the past, I would say 5 years, especially, we have yet to see something that's like, you guys have to have this. That's why we don't recommend a certain CRM. We're like, it's all, but we recommend platforms to connect to your CRM, right? Because they're not thinking of post gift being made. This is all pre. So this is all, so you want to bake bread. This is not how to take the bread out of the oven and slice it and any of that. This is all the ingredients that go into the bread. It is Salesforce is literally called Salesforce, but even the others, they are relationship management. They're not post gift. So even gift entry, like I know one that can't do soft credits without a build out, and I'm like, oh dear. And some of you have said, they left out all of our recognition names and transferred those over in the wrong space, right? So it's really about, so I think we have to level set our expectations rather than, we have influence in the industry, but I've had conversations and they're like, there's no money in donor relations. And I'm like, oh, but there is, in terms of that's where all the money ends up, right? But they don't see a profit center in donor relations or in building out donor relations. Another one would be, just like most of the CRMs don't have their own built-in document management, they use a third-party document management system and tie into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is why you've got to ask all these questions up front. And you also, by the way, you need to lobby for budget for those I call them third party. So the add-ons, the top hats for your CRM, because if you don't, what will happen is you will be implemented. The vendor will say you're in steady state, which means goodbye, wash my hands of you. They will support you to a certain extent, but they're not building anything else for you. And your IT team will say, well, Major Gifts has the priority, and then blah, 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 blah. We all know how it goes. That's why I said donor relations, annual giving, alumni engagement were the end of the pipeline. So it could be 2-3 years before this is built out. So at the front, say, even if they are saying on their roadmap, they're going to build this capability, I need that capability from day one. And in order to have that, I need XYZ software. Now, it would be great if it integrated with whatever CRM you're moving to. So you're not trading flat files all over the place and it's a manual process, which just leads to mistakes. So you're going to have to do your research, but you have to do it, guys. They're not going to do this for you. And you've got to make it an issue with that steering committee, because the last thing you want is to go live, you're in steady state, and all the budget's gone. So now
Yeah.
you're just up the creek.
And there is power in numbers, and which we've been talking about. And this comes in two ways, right? So in your institution, there's power in numbers. So rally your alumni friends, rally your annual giving friends, rally specifically if you all are considering the Salesforce side of house. A lot of you are using Salesforce for the entire institution. You can rally your friends on the other side of the fence a lot about the integrations and the APIs and all of those things, right? So there's that internally. But also, as you sign on to new platforms, rally the community. A lot of these platforms have community spaces. Even if they're not like monthly webinars, they're still like boards where you can go put in your feedback. And if you and your other donor relations friends that are on XYZ platform are all coming in going, hi, we need this. This is causing us problems. Here's our problem. Here's our workload. How can you help us? The power in numbers comes into play. And so,
Give them a use case too. Please give them a use case.
Yes.
That's vernacular, because if they do not have a use case, they will not even look at it.
That's right.
For example, I every year pull a list from my current database of all donors tied to endowed funds or all stewardees. Where will the stewardees be stored in my new CRM? How do I indicate whether they're active or inactive? How do I pull in their contact information? And y'all, we know you're not all data folks. That's why we're here to help. That's why there are people out there. There isn't a consulting firm yet for donor relations and CRMs, although we have expertise. We're happy to help you, even if it's just have a conversation. I think the other thing that you need to understand is there's a lot of jargon, conversion jargon, you know, like AffiniQuest, you know, Salesforce through AffiniQuest, Ascend through the you know, and get clear what definitions are for you. So for example, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn and I see a lot of posts where companies announce this mini university is live on X platform. They've accomplished their go live date. They're live. And I'm like,
yeah, what does that mean, Lynn?
So what does go live mean? And what does that mean for your work? Because for the most part, go live means you're also running in your other database. Because go live does not mean the door is closed and like, it's not like a changing of outfits where I come home, I put on, you know, remember when you came home from school and your mother said, go put on your play clothes, or your family member said, go put on your play clothes. It is not putting on your play clothes and the others go in the laundry and you don't see them again. You are wearing two pairs of pants, folks. Like, go live can mean things at many, and there's extreme pressure to meet the go live deadline on both sides. The company gets incentivized, their folks get incentivized by making go live dates. I know that there are financial incentives. I'm just going to be very candid for people to meet their go live deadlines. And as your partners in advancement services or operations or ITS, there's a lot of pressure on them from leadership saying, you promised we were live, you said this date and we set it in stone and it's May 15th and we're supposed to go live May 21st. And so they feel great pressure. Go live does not mean though that the entire conversion is over and everything is done. Correct, ladies?
That's correct. Yeah, go live is the basics. You should be able to enter a gift, update data, run a few reports. I will tell you one vendor, when I was helping with a system migration and implementation, I said, where are your template reports? And he's like, well, we have 5. I'm like, well, those 5 don't do anything for the areas we've already mentioned. Where are the rest of them? But here are the top 10 reports that I need for donor relations. No answer. And they're like, well, we're not going to build that. So technically they were live, but my client could do no reporting. So they couldn't do their endowment reports. So it said they couldn't send those out. So you know what hit the fan? And I'm like, well, but and the VP kept saying, but we're live. I'm like, yeah, without all the bells and whistles. I mean, and this isn't even a bell and whistle. This is just something that we need.
You're live, but you're standing out in the playground with your underwear on going, this is embarrassing. And Elizabeth just said that they've been go live for 6 months and don't have minimum viable, you know, so they promised a minimum viable product and what they currently have is worse, and then they have to go back to the old database. So, and we're not trying to scare everyone, we're trying to give you the reality. So Liz, what does go live work look like at maybe a secondary software like Awarded or Otter versus a CRM conversion?
Yeah, so go live date on those is you are at, would say like 80% of the way there, right? Like you're live, things are in, you can play, you can move things around, you're fine tuning your experience, right? So I'll use ThinkView as a great example. When you kick off with ThinkView, you get your portal, they set that up for you. They hand you your like how-to guides, and there's some training webinars, and then you are like ready to hit the ground running. You know what you're doing, you know how to function in there, all of those great things. And so now your questions are just more like, oh, I forgot how to do X, or oh, I tried to do this and it kicked me back in error, and I, like instead of going, I don't even know where this goes. How does this even function? Wait, where does this live again? So, your third parties are definitely going to get you on a go live 80% of the way there. And then that 20% is what we do with all of our systems, right? You'll learn it and you get into your flow. It's like when you get a new phone or your iOS updates, you have to like relearn some of the things. You go live, you just kind of like review your functionality and you go. So yeah, like in the third party vendor support state, go live is definitely more a usable product. And I saw this question, I'm just going to throw it out there. Test databases,
test database is a thing.
They are a thing, but it depends.
Oh, the sandbox.
Yeah.
Sandbox now, where it used to be called pre-prod.
They still call that behind the scenes, let's be real.
Sandbox is pre-production, sandbox. Yeah. Again, that's the vocabulary. You have to say to them, guys, what are you talking about? What is this word? Because I even do that with my clients. I'm like, so what does this mean at your school or your hospital or your organization? Because I mean, it is literally speaking foreign languages some days and doing that translation thing. There is a lot of testing that's done. It's so funny because people say to me, we did all this testing. Then when we went live, it was still broken. And I'm like, yes.
That's what I was just going to say. Make sure you get to play in the sandbox, please, because you will find out what works and what doesn't work. And you can ask that question, will this work when we go live?
And you need to push for a sandbox or a test database if you're not. There are some companies that will not give it to you unless it's written in the contract. So as you are in your like contracting phase, you need to make sure and go, I need a tester. Like we're not just gonna like turn it on and go, right? Like we're gonna play, we're gonna do this right. So really push for those, because I do think that is really important. But your sandbox or test database should be like 85 to 90% of what your actual experience will be. And so if it's not happening in that test environment, you really need to like go, no, we're not ready. You're not leaving us yet.
Don't sign off.
Don't sign off. And this is important. This is, again, we keep preaching, you need a chair at the table. This is why, because once you sign off or a representative at your institution, that's it. You have signed off that this works for you and this meets the capabilities and requirements that were contracted. So you got to go back to the contract too. And maybe you don't have access to that, but you have access to the steering committee or the other individual that you ask that question. Was this included in the contract? This is not working for me in the sandbox. I would say we do not sign off on this particular, because you do implementation in stages. So don't sign off on that stage.
And as we talk about implementation stages, right? Everybody needs their checklist of things that they need to say, yes, this works before sign off, right? So if you have gotten your seat at that steering committee, which I know all of you will, make sure that you see that checklist and make sure that your team has 2 or 3 things on that checklist at bare minimum, right? Your alumni friends, like it's not just, oh yeah, things are mapped and I can click this button and it generates. Like actual workflow functionality needs to be on this checklist before you are ready to sign off. And that
run an event, run endowment files that you need so you can create impact reports. Like actually do that work and see if it works. Because if it doesn't, don't just think, oh, that'll work when we go live. It may or it may not.
So this is all valuable information. I see a lot of positive comments. We also have some people who are, the bread has been baked, it's out of the oven. I need to cut it and I've got a spoon.
Oh yeah.
And my bread is lumpy, or it's rotten already. Look, it's post-conversion. What can I do? Do I reset my expectations? Again, the help is left, somebody signed off on it, the cavalry is gone. Do I go looking for third-party software? Because the fact that they're going to come in and do a re-implementation or change, that's a big move. So that's not the move. It's saying, well, we need to fix it, right? Sorry, Kathy, for the analogies. I love an analogy, right? But so they're not going to fix it. They're not going to install a new CRM. That's millions of dollars at most places, right? What do I do if we're live, we're longer than live, and I got a turd? I'm just,
Yeah. You guys still get
working.
that seat at the table, because I'm telling you that committee, that's the steering committee that started, they are still in place. And many times they turn into that data governance committee that was already mentioned. And so you have to go and fight for the priority to work on what you need to work. So you need to have your checklist. You need to say why it's important. You need to have it prioritized. Do not ask for the world, because they are not going to do it. Go in and say, I need 1, 2, 3, and this is most important because I cannot do X, Y, Z, right? And
not just I can't do, this is the impact on the donor.
That's right.
Because
I can't do it and show the impact to the donor that my VP wants, so my gift officer can go make that next ask.
Exactly. I think a lot of us go in and we say, you've made my job harder, or and they'll be like, it'll be fine, calm down, girl, calm down. And what we really need to say is, I'm unable to do this function job, which means the donors don't receive this. So I do think that's an important distinction. Liz, what's another thing that we can do post conversion, if there ever is such a thing?
Yeah. So after you've signed off and life's happening, not only internally, but as I like to say, start your research. So again, your community forums are a great place to research, because a lot of times someone else has also had this experience and has shared internally how they were able to find their Band-Aid or do a workaround, or can suggest to you that third-party support, right? So I always love going in. I know like comment boards can be an interesting place, but if you get your search terms right, you'll be in a good space. But also, as you are researching your third-party tools, you need to come with these specific spaces. I cannot tell you how many times I've been on a sales call and I just get the response, well, we're special.
Everyone
and I go,
is unique.
and I kind of go, yes, but no, but yes, right? Like, yes, you are, in the sense that you have your own workflow. No, in the sense that like, there are a lot of people that have their own workflows, and my job is to be here to help you make it better, right? But yes, I need more, right? Don't just say we're special, like give the process. Like right now, this is how we operate. This is where it's broken. Can you come in and help me solve this problem? And you're going to have your list of problems, right? But being able to come into those conversations with your third party, with your community, and go, this is the problem, this is what we're up against, is going to help you find the answers, right? It's like when you go into Google or ChatGPT, you have to have the right search terms, you have to have the right build out of that prompt.
Help me.
Yeah, you can't just say, like you got to give a couple sentences and a little bit more. Screenshots are always helpful for the visual people in the world, right? But that helps you document the issues you're having, so that way you can then take it to your leadership, and that way they can help support you when you go to the steering committee. But they're also then going to have all this documentation for when you go ask for budgetary support and go, hi, I found a couple things that can help us. Here's our budget range. But it solves all this stuff that we already have documented and they're aware of.
Sure.
Yeah,
I also like to create a list of things that you used to be able to do that you can no longer do. Really simple. It's called the open doors theory. I used to be able to do this. Now the change has happened. I'm unable to do this, or I'm currently unable to do this and I would like to do this. But you're going to have to think very realistic. don't listen to all the sales stuff. Don't listen to and one
Nope.
click later, that's not reality. That's just,
And pick up the phone, y'all.
yeah.
Network, pick up the phone, call somebody at another institution, ask them the question. If they don't know, they probably know somebody who does. And then you have the power to say, at blah, 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 they do XYZ.
Correct.
And if they're like your peer institution that your organization benchmarks off of, that only supports your power there.
And if you need to know, we have a network of people. So if you need someone who's like you, we can help you locate someone. So Kathleen, I think this is a great final question, but again, we'd love to hear from you. How should we be thinking about AI as it relates to CRMs? Because there's a lot of CRMs saying, and AI will do this for you, and AI will generate this for you, and everything like that. And I'm like, AI can't do anything if they don't have the donor's name in the database and the data isn't clean. So
more importantly, there's people behind the AI, you guys. So
correct.
they have to, the algorithm has to be written. So and you have to make sure that the answer is correct. So even if there is AI in the system, there needs to be somebody at your institution who understands the algorithm that AI is using to pull the data and ensures that it is correct. And you need to double check the answer is coming out. So all the CRMs are saying they have AI. They do.
They do.
But it takes a staff person behind it, because remember, the vendor's not in the background running the AI for you. That's your team on your campus. Once they're gone, that you'll get the updates that they apply, right? You'll go to their user conferences, but they're not in the background writing code, writing algorithms, doing all of this. So I think we're going to see a lot more AI. You just have to be ready to have someone at your campus that is knowledgeable in data science and AI who can support the system.
And I would say this, I said in a recent article for AGB that I don't think we should call it artificial intelligence. We should call it artificial assistance. So I use AI to interpret a very difficult techie report. I say, here's this report on RNA, please explain it to me like a layperson or a sixth grader. But right now, generative AI in donor relations sounds hollow, unfeeling. It's everything we don't teach. I think AI is a wonderful thing eventually. Again, remember, we have confidential data there. We have data concerns. We have donor concerns. And also, we have to think about AI is not going to replace a human. It's not going to in fundraising. I know that there are fake fundraisers or artificial fundraisers out there. Blessed be them, but I don't know any donor that's going to meet with them much. But what I want you to think about is, what can AI do to shorten my manual steps? AI is great at spreadsheets. AI is great at truncating language. We at DRG don't believe in AI for generating content, but it can help you. It does math really well. Things like that. It does research, but everything has to be verified. So that's how I think about it. And to everyone's point, any tech, any software, anything you use in the technical space is all, the tech is only good as garbage in, garbage out, right? What you put in and what you get out, and the human being using the technology. Just like I probably use 20% of my iPhone's capabilities. I have seen people do these on iPhones and I'm like, oh, it can do that? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, and you're 9 years old. And they're like, yes. And I'm like, my phone still makes phone calls. How about that? So, so there's never going to be a time when we don't have humans involved in our tech. And so what I would say, Kathleen, especially is, am I doing my blocking and tackling well? Can my CRM currently meet my basic needs? So go through your 4 pillars of donor relations and say, I need the following things. And if it's not doing that, then AI is down the road a long way. It's a nice accessory to have, but it is not essential to the work that we do currently. I can do the work without it. I believe in automation. I believe in tech. We just have to be mindful about, we still have a long way to go in how we build these things out. I mean, there's so many options. For another final metaphor, a lot of these CRMs are built like the Cheesecake Factory menu.
Oh,
yes, they are.
Canadian friends, it's like this thick, it's spiral bound, and it can't be good at everything. It can't be. But I go to Cheesecake Factory, I get the same thing because I'm scared because I don't know what the 62 other pages are. And I don't realize that there can be that many flavors of cheesecake. And I like a cheesecake, but it can't be. So there's not enough structure. You know, I love the essence. When I went to Japan, each restaurant did one thing, or food stall did one thing, and they did it really well. And it was the best X you've ever had. I'm a fan of that rather than trying to be everything to everyone. So just like we can't be everything to everyone of our donors, but we thank each and every one of you for trusting us with this conversation. We're very grateful to all of you. And if you need help, our first names at donorrelations.com. You can reach out to any of us. We're happy to help you all, but we hope that you get something out of today and it can at least feel a little like, okay, I'm in it with everybody else. And this is one tool in my entire world, right? So take our survey. Again, another tool, another software, right? But thank you all so much. Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, Liz. And thanks to everyone. We hope we see you soon. Stay warm for those of you who are dealing with a cold snap. So take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Bye.